Tell everybody, we haven't done this in a while, Chris, but for people who are new to the show, I know what you do, but they don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you.
Sure.
What is CEMA's purpose? I mentioned what the acronym is, but what is your job, the overall mission for CEMA?
Yeah, simply, we represent typically small family-owned businesses that distribute energy products like home heating oil, bioheat, propane, gasoline, kerosene. So basically, if it's a liquid fuel that you use to propel your car, for your lawnmower, to heat your home, we're the ones who bring it to you. We also service, install, repair HVAC equipment. So your air conditioning in the summer, in your heating systems in the winter, regardless of the fuel they use, from electricity through natural gas to the deliverable fuels, like I said, propane and heating oil. So we're basically your one-stop shop. And the association's job is to help educate them. We do education programs. We own a technical trade school that we train apprentices to become licensed technicians. We do management education where we teach our owners. This industry has changed a lot in the last 75 years since we started the association, and things like buying and selling oil have become very complicated. It used to be you sent your truck to the terminal, you filled it up, you marked it up a little bit, and you brought it back. Now you have to engage in sophisticated financial instruments on Wall Street, and we actually provide education to our owners about how to hedge, how to buy and sell oil and energy products.
Okay. I want to just summarize this for people so that you don't receive the wrong phone call. CEMA, you're a trade organization that represents 2/3 of the home heating oil retailers in Connecticut, and that roughly comes to about 600 companies. Who you do not represent are natural gas or electric companies, right? You operate one of the largest trade schools also in the state of Connecticut called ENTECH. But I want to take it one step further. You also represent 75% of the gasoline stations in Connecticut, and this includes propane, kerosene members as well. And all your companies, they're basically locally owned and family-run businesses here in the state of Connecticut.
Yes, we are. Okay. Our members, like I said, are family-owned. They're based in Connecticut. Connecticut's a unique state, and I bet you and your listeners may not know this. This is kind of an interesting fact. Connecticut is one of only 2 or 3 states in the country that prohibit refiners like ExxonMobil and Shell from owning gas stations. So gas stations in Connecticut, when you pull up, you're likely pulling up to a family-owned gas station. You're not pulling up to something that's owned by a refiner in Abu Dhabi. It's owned by the person who you might run into at the local Little League game. So we're a very different type of industry than a lot of other states have.
Okay. Good. I'm glad that you cleared that up because, I've mentioned CEMA in the past and people start getting, their blood starts to boil, and I'll get phone calls on and off the air and go, because they think of who it is. They think it's Annie Lamont and her, and I, like you just said a moment ago, you're getting angry phone calls. So I want to try to eliminate that for you. Okay.
Nope. I do appreciate it. People get angry about a lot of things. I don't need to add that to the list.
That's why I did that. I wanted to do that right in the beginning and nip that in the bud so that if anybody starts to wondering, why are you evading questions? I would be asking CEMA for. And I'm like, well, I didn't ask that question because I wasn't talking to CEMA for. Are you just talking to CEMA? CEMA, CEMA, not SEMA for. Oh, so all right. So we got that out of the way. And thank you for answering probably such a simple question, but I had to do it. I had to get that out first.
Got it. No problem.
So let me ask you this. If someone is interested in, and I'm sure you've been real busy over the last several months, but if someone is interested in becoming a licensed HVAC professional, what do they need to do? Where would you recommend they start?
Sure. This is a great opportunity for a lot of young people to explore a high-paying, high-in-demand, pandemic-proof and recession-proof job. Regardless, some of the busiest times that our members reported were actually during the pandemic because people were home. If there was a glitch in the system, something was going on with their heating system or their air conditioning system, they were quick to call because most of the time the house is empty during the day, right? People are at work and school. So these jobs are in high demand. Every single one of our members, those 600 companies that you referenced, and we're not the only people who hire these individuals, could take on somebody today. Literally, every single person could take on one or more HVAC technicians. So if you wanted to get started, you have to go to school. School you can get out in a very short period of time. It's 3 to 6 months worth of full-time day training, or you can go to night school and stretch it out a little bit, and it's more like a year and a half. And from there, you enter into an apprenticeship program. You could do that while you're in school and earning while you're going to school and in your apprenticeship. So it's not a heavy lift to move forward. There are plenty of schools. The state technical high school system offers education programs. There's a lot of commercial schools like ours, ENTECH, located in Cromwell. So there's lots of places that you can go to get this training.
Didn't we have, I could have sworn we had on the show one morning, George Pirelli, isn't he from ENTECH? Did you bring him? It may have been a few months.
I did. It was a few months ago. George is the chairman of our school advisory board. So what we do is we take in companies that actually understand what the challenges are in the field, and then they tell us what to teach. Now, there's a state minimum curriculum that we follow. You got to teach Ohm's law, and you got to teach basic principles of science and math and engineering, but which sound a lot more difficult than they are. If I might have a hard time with it, our students seem to do really well with it. But George from F. Pirelli and Sons came out of the program and talked a little bit about how, as an employer, that he's ready. He's ready to hire. His colleagues, his competitors are ready to hire. It is a high demand industry.
All right. So I don't know whether to ask you this question or ask George, but what is the demand right now for HVAC jobs?
No, literally. So just to give you an idea of how much employers are looking for these individuals, we have had a 100% placement of our HVAC classes for 3 consecutive years. That means that every student who has walked in the door has either had a job coming in and they just needed to get the education part taken care of, or if they didn't have a job, when they left our program, and 3 to 6 months later, depending on what license they decided to take, they were working. So we haven't had a problem filling a position in the field that is needed. Everybody's working. So if that gives you an idea that you come to school, you start working.
I didn't know. What kind of companies hire HVAC technicians? Just out of
that's a great
curiosity.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're actually, it's not just your local heating oil or propane company or a large utility that might use them, but it's also, it could be hotels that have large heating and cooling systems, malls, shopping centers, large commercial buildings, apartment buildings. Basically, HVAC, if you see a building, there's an HVAC system in it, and it needs to be properly maintained. It needs to be repaired on occasion. And so you can literally take the knowledge that you learn with a B or an S license and do it anywhere, not only in Connecticut, not only in the country, but anywhere in the world. I mean, the principles between for heating and air conditioning and refrigeration can be applied literally in any country. So if you don't like it where you are, you want to go down south, you can. This is a portable license. It's not. There may be different licensing requirements in other states, but once you learn these principles, you can literally do it anywhere there's a heating and ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration system.
All right. So I have to ask you a rather complex question, because I'm listening to what you're saying, but is explain the work. Is it that an HVAC tech does? It sounds like it's a little bit of everything. I mean, you're talking about gas stations. You're talking about home heating gas.
Yeah.
I'm confused a little bit as far as what exactly falls under the purview once you get trained and you get hired. What are they responsible for?
Sure. So if you look at the S license, that is sort of what we call the master HVAC trade license. You could be working on residential air conditioning. You could be working on chilling systems that are massive, ones that heat buildings like the state capitol, the legislative office building, which are huge, huge buildings, huge systems. You could be working in somebody's basement. on a natural gas or heating oil system. You could be working in what you do when you're working on these systems is that you may be dealing with electrical problems, complex electrical or computer board issues. It could be mechanical. It could be literally piping, stuff that you might see plumbers do, where they're dealing with the piping and the piping is broken and that needs to be repaired. So there is a very diverse set of skills that a person needs to understand to be able to do this. Like I said, it's from Ohm's law to basic plumbing, and all of those problems can be encountered in every job, in virtually every setting, depending on which building and which system is having those issues.
We are talking with Chris Herb, the president of CEMA. Hey, does it pay well? Or I don't know. I'm not obviously experienced in HVAC or the trades themselves, but I would imagine this pays okay. Where could I start? Like once I graduate from school, where do you see me starting? And how much can I make the longer I'm in the trade?
I'm going to take a step back before that. So you're planning on graduating high school, or you're a recent high school graduate, and you're trying to make a decision. Do I go to college and incur $150,000 worth of debt, take 4 years out of my life to learn about ancient Greek history where it has no application in the world, and then go try to find a job that pays something and you end up being a barista for $15 an hour at Starbucks? That's one path, and unfortunately, in our society, a lot of people choose to pursue that path. Then there's the other student, the one who says, you know what, I have a little bit of mechanical aptitude. I'd like to go to school for 6 months, get paid while I go to school, enter into an apprenticeship program, and start to have a pathway to become a journeyman a technician, whether it's HVAC or any of the trades. I mean, we're talking about plumbers and electricians. And then when you get out, you come to a guy like my house where something's broke, and if I touch it, I'm just going to break it worse. And I'll pay anything to get my air conditioning back up and running during the summer. These are high-paying, competitive jobs, and you have no debt coming out. I mean, virtually no debt compared to college. So I think that the advantage of the young person, or anyone, frankly, we have students in our school who are in their 40s. We have students in our school that are 18 and 19 years old also. But once they get out, and so when you think about a 40-year-old guy with a family who's making a career change, knowing that he's starting at the bottom, the wages are still attractive enough for people to make that switch. And the overtime opportunities are immense, just from the standpoint that it's just there's so few technicians out there compared to the amount of work that needs to be done. Okay, so I've had, and I know you know him, my former colleague, Tim Ackert. And I know you know him because he's a state representative, and he owns Ackert Electric. And I kind of knew this anyways, but he was obviously able to delve into it a lot deeper than the cursory information that I had. And that is, they only allow a certain amount of apprenticeships for each business. And what's upsetting to him is that as much as we want people to go to school for this, there's only X amount of internships allowed by state law. And of course, now the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, it's the whole supply and demand thing. If you want to increase your rates, you limit the amount of people that can actually perform the job. So if you have electricians everywhere and there's an abundance of them, they're plentiful, well, guess what happens? The rates go down because, hey, you're not the only game in town. I'll go call your neighbor up the road and he'll come out and do it for less. I get that to a certain extent, but we need more apprenticeships, but yet the legislature, and I think they're controlled by the union personally, as far as this law is concerned, will only allow a certain amount of them. Yeah, we have actually, as you know, I have an advocacy role in Hartford where we lobby legislators. And this is an issue that I will tell you for 22 years comes up virtually every year, every other year, is that there's a ratio. So If you have a journeyman, that's someone who is fully licensed and they can work on their own without supervision. If you have one, you can have one apprentice. That makes sense. You don't want 10 to 1 because how does one guy teach 10 people in the field? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you start going up the ladder, the more journeymen that you have, the less apprentices you have, which makes no sense. At minimum, it should be a 1-to-1 ratio all the way through. If you have 10 journeymen, you should be able to have at least 10 apprentices. So when you get up to if you have 6 journeymen, for example, working for you, you can only have 4 apprentices. So there can potentially be a bottleneck in terms of the amount of apprentices that can actually be in the field. And that is a problem. I will tell you, it's a problem that right now we just don't have enough apprentices to, in many cases, meet those ratios. But it is something that has been changed a few times over the years. I agree with Representative Hacker. It needs to be a priority. If we want more young people to be in the trades, if we want, more electricians and plumbers and HVAC technicians, then the ratio system needs to be overhauled tremendously.
Okay. By the way, folks, we actually have State Representative Tim Acker with us as a guest next hour, which so it's a great day to be talking about this. I'm so glad that you're both on the same day. Hey, out of curiosity, you said something about 6 months. How long does it take is that really how long it takes for someone to complete enough schooling to go along with an apprenticeship to become a licensed tech?
Yeah. So for the S license, the HVACR license, covering the entire spectrum, it's an 8,000-hour program in total. The schooling part of it, full-time during the day, takes 6 months. If you wanted a B license or a burner license, that's a 2,000-hour program that takes 3 months. So you could literally be graduated high school in the field making real money in as little as 3 months. I mean, it's exciting how quick you can get through this. Now, obviously, I will say that being in the trades is more challenging actually than college, because guess what? At the end, so you do your schooling, you have to pass. Then you do your on-the-job training, which is all those hours that I'm referring to. And then at the end, you have to take a state licensing exam. So you can't work alone until you do all of those things.
All right, I only have 30 seconds. The pay, what can you make? Can you make 6 figures?
Oh, absolutely. My father-in-law retired from the HVAC field and to Florida, owns 3 houses, and was making 6 figures.
How about a poll worker? Does that take more schooling and training, and do you get more money for that? I have 10 seconds.
I'm not sure. I know they're in high demand, and they get paid well.
Chris, I'm so glad you're with us this morning. You cleared up a lot of the CEMA stuff for us as well. So we'll get you back on, in February, and we can talk about other things that I know are relevant to your organization. But thanks for being with us this morning.
Be well, Gary.
You got it, brother. All right, that's Chris Herb from CEMA. All right, coming right back to your phone calls. They're all open. Stay with us. Alabama.